Hey, I'm so glad you set up time. What's going on? Yep, performance review season. How was your review? That's a good rating. You got feedback about being strategic. Okay. Well, how did your review session go? You didn't ask questions. What? We've talked about that. No, you've been thinking about it since. No, that's fine. No, and we'll talk about it today. I can give general thoughts on what I see about being strategic, but anytime someone has questions on their review, I always think it's helpful. No, so it's not like a one and done. I mean, that's feedback that you ideally should carry through the year and work on. So if you have questions about what something looks like, it's never too late. Just literally, you can say, I've been thinking about this and I'd love to talk more specifically because I really want to focus on being strategic. And I want to make sure I have an idea what that looks like, where I am now, and what it would look like for me to be and to lead more strategically. No, I think asking very practically. Yeah, and you can set up time. You can give your boss a heads up and say, I want to talk about this. Let's set up time the next few days or in your next one-on-one so you can talk about it. But yeah, we can talk about it as well. Because I think being strategic is a word, it's kind of like when people talk about empathy and they're like, you gotta have empathy. But I think a lot of people are out there and they're like, I don't know what that means exactly. We can have we can have another session on empathy. But being strategic, so the thought of that, there's different ways. And I know you haven't been a manager that long, but no, I heard you say you feel like you should be already because you're a manager. Being strategic in almost any quality, they don't just happen because you become a manager. And there's many individual contributors who are very strategic, and there's managers that are very senior leaders that don't think strategically. They're just playing whack-a-mole with what's going on. And so the idea of strategy and thinking strategically isn't to add like hours more of work on your day. I know, I know you don't have that. And it's an idea of just having a pause and having an understanding and then acting in a way that's not just putting out those fires. Yeah, so what's your day like now? Okay, start with a to-do list. You get halfway through it. Well, that's impressive. And with your team as well. I know, especially as a manager, you can feel like there's stuff you need to do, trying to help your team get through their list, and you constantly feel like you're falling short. I think it's really natural. But so we can talk about workloads and prioritization and things like that, but thinking strategically. The idea of that really is moving beyond the like, let's go day to day, get things done, to having an overall sense of the organization, how the different pieces, go through, and thinking constantly about what you're doing. Does this make sense? Is this the right time for things? Or is this something we should rethink? Is this a process we should rethink? And so a lot of it is just adding another layer of thought before you do things. It's not going to double your workload, I promise. I don't want it to sound like that. But it's okay. So thinking strategically can mean team meetings. So I know we talked about how your team meetings and you want to talk about those. So you have a whole team meeting every single week with people in all sorts of different roles. It's always been that way. Well, that's it. I think for many people you do things and it's always been that way, but you don't take time to think about it. So thinking strategically can be thinking about that. Okay, so you have this meeting. If you're going to add up the cost of the salaries of all the people in that meeting, well, that's a big investment. It's also, and that's for the company, but it's also a time investment of those people on your team. Are they coming and thinking, great, this could be an email. What's going to happen? Can I work on something else? Can I Wordle, do things and still look like I'm paying attention? Am I going to get called on and called out? And so thinking about the realities, how does this impact the organization and those individuals on the team? Is this going to be effective for what they're doing? And if it's not, then rethinking it. So maybe it's rethinking the timing of it. Do you really need to meet with your whole entire team in all different roles every week? Are you getting value out of that? Nice to get together. Okay, we can talk about other ways you can do it, but thinking strategically means really thinking about that investment of time. Yeah, totally. So thinking strategically also is about time for those individuals on your team. So people on your team, I know you have a number that are in the same position. So as they come on board, for example, as you go through training, are you using part of that training to talk about the overall organization's goals and how their role ties into that purpose? They should know it already? I mean, they might, but I think being proactive and communicating that can be part of being strategic in asking people, if you see something that you think should be better, we are constantly looking to innovate so that we can make sure we're doing what's most effective and efficient for everyone's schedules. Yeah, so that can be part of strategic thinking, is to really think about people's investments in time and not just doing things to check the box. Yeah. Well, so I know. I know you just had someone leave your team. So part of thinking strategically is saying, okay, we had 10 people in this role, 9, we need another person in there. So that may be day to day. We need a warm body. Yep, because everybody else is gonna complain. But taking strategic thinking can be thinking, okay, you have this gap on your team now. What are the workloads like for our people on your team, and what are they working on that they think that they may be side texting, they may be thinking behind your back, but like this isn't a good use of our time. And so as you talk to your team, you can say, I want to get a sense to talk about everyone's workloads. And this isn't a situation where we're just looking for ways to cost money and have the 9 of you do the work of 10 people. That's absolutely not what we want to do. But anytime we're thinking about this, and do we just hire? We want to think, is this an opportunity to rethink how we're working, or what is something you're spending time on that you really think is not adding value, and talking about that. And it requires trust in having that open conversation. But if you have a team, in your team, whether it's when someone leaves or at any point, feels like they can speak up and say, I'm doing this, but I don't know how this relates to the organization's goals. And having that really tied into their day-to-day speak and the way that they think about things. So as you talk about people, our goal is to, do this with customers. And it doesn't have to be just your team, like an IT team. So if you have individuals that are on a help desk and they're thinking, and their manager of the help desk may think, well, what do you mean me talk strategically to them? Okay, well, that's a really powerful group because they're getting a lot of these tickets in. And so that group, so those individuals on the help desk and that their boss as their manager of those, they may see a lot of patterns. So if the organization's goals are, we want to, retain customers, have, less than 10% churn of customers, which would be great, and add 17% more customers in the next 6 months. Okay, well, there's some technological components that go along with that. So in the help desk, some people may show up, work on tickets, move them on, work on tickets, move them on. And their manager may think about, okay, how many tickets are you solving? How are you doing that? But thinking strategically may be saying to the team, as you see these patterns emerge, let's talk about it. Because if we see constant issues coming up, they may affect our customers. They may affect our employees. So we want to make sure that not only are we as a team solving what they're doing, but if we see patterns like this software may not be the right one, and as an organization, we're trying to add customers, we may be accidentally hurting ourselves because we have an antiquated product or an old product that's not working, and we should fix that. And so for the help desk to be able to think strategically about that day to day, hey, where could we actually make investments in that might pay off in the end? And then that help desk manager needs to be able to escalate that conversation. Yeah, so totally different team from yours, but there's every single different manager can think about those ways. And so thinking strategically really can mean trying to understand what you're working on and how that ties into the team's goals, the organization's goals, and how you work on that. Yeah, there's 3 questions I think are really helpful to think strategically about almost anything. And that is the why, the what, and the how. And that's something you can think of for yourself. It's something that's really powerful for your teams to help them think strategically as well. And so, so let's say we want to grow customers by 17%. Okay, why? Because we want to have revenue increase by X. Okay, that's the organization's goal. So then the what? So what does that mean for our team? How is that going to affect things? And then how? How are we going to affect that individually? And so asking those overall questions and filtering that down, that's part of it. And if you ever have trouble with that, that's what your boss can talk through. And that can be a really helpful question to your boss to think about. I want to make sure that I'm thinking strategically, but also start planting these seeds with my team so that we're thinking about those. Yeah. Right. Okay. Because performance reviews, totally. So right now, and we can definitely talk about this in another session, but so performance reviews now can be a tough time because in performance reviews, it's a tough economy. Our competitors, we're seeing competitors cut. We're trying to limit any cuts we're making here. And so that's why you may see questions of like, do we replace this person? But we also don't want to just have the same amount of work, same work done on less people. That's why we want to think strategically so we're not burning out our employees. But so in performance reviews, it can be tough because you may have employees that are getting great reviews that aren't getting the same salary increases. And it may be because we're in a tough economy and we're not sure where things are going to go. And so employees probably on your team, especially those that don't manage someone, of course they're going to wonder, I got this salary, I got this rating, where is my increase? Where is my bonus? And if that's not happening, what can you do to motivate them? And what can you do to have that conversation with them? And you may, day to day think, okay, well, I'll just appoint my boss. It was out of my hands. I'm sorry, I can't do anything. But day to day, it's not going to help. It's not helpful for that employee, and it's not helpful for your leadership. And so what in that situation you can really think about, and that is, it's talking to your boss. What are talking points in this instance? What can we do? How can we paint a picture of, yeah, you know what? We haven't done cuts and we're really trying not to. So as a result, we are being more conservative. We're watching things and looking to see where we can give certain amount of rewards. But being able to talk to employees about the realities of what that looks like, and saying to people, we have not done cuts. I do not want any, and I want to do everything I can so that we work and we're not having to have cuts, because I know people that are right now on the job market, and it can be a tough place to be. And so as we think about work, sometimes we're going to see significant financial rewards, and that's something that as an organization, I'm working to give input on a bonus structure so that as the organization's doing well, people will see outsized rewards. So it's not just hold tight now, but people will see that, and we've done that in the past. But talking about that strategically, so talking about the why, the what, and the how for anyone, so they understand the rationale, what that looks like, and how we can do things. Okay, so as a manager, you know what? I can't give you the increase that I'd love to if I could cut a personal check. I can't either. But to say these are things I can do. And so for now, whether it's giving some additional time off, things that are under, no, that will not pay your bills. But I want you to understand that not is it just, be thankful you have a job. Absolutely not. I'm appreciative to have you here, and I will do what I can as a manager. And eventually, as things improve, we are looking for financial rewards. But I want you to understand that I'm doing everything I can within my power to appreciate what you've done. And so that can be a more strategic conversation. It's never going to be a fun one, and it's not going to be well received. But people will appreciate when you do speak with them candidly rather than just pass the buck. And so a lot of strategic thinking is about that, thinking beyond the day-to-day, the why, the what, in the how, in anything, and taking that opportunity to rethink. As employees have priorities, if they're working on projects, being able to raise your hand and say, okay, that's not them working on this isn't going towards our goals as an organization. So let's rethink where they're spending their time. And absolutely. And that's part of managing up. Oh, we have so many things we can talk about. But I think that the idea of thinking strategically, I think a lot is just thinking and appreciating and tying things to the organization's goals, and being able to rethink and vocalize when you think maybe something should be different. But then teaching that to your team as well. Yeah. No, but set up time, absolutely. And after you talk to your boss, I'm happy to talk more. But no, I think we have a few things that are helpful to talk about, and I'm always here. Okay. And congrats on that review.